Hello YouTube, it's me, Brittany, and this is the third installment of my coming out journey. If you've already watched the first two, thank you, you know exactly where we're at. I just left New York, now I'm in Los Angeles. While I was in New York, I kind of became a free love spirit, just kind of ran all over the place, really experimented with sexuality, while also kind of venturing into cross-dressing, drag, and things like that, really starting to discover what the real true me was, and that was I always knew I was a girl. I just never really learned anything about it. So now we're gonna jump into LA. If you have not seen the other two videos, please subscribe. You will be able to find them on my channel. They are marked male to female, my coming out journey, starting with my high school and then to New York City. Now let's talk a little bit about LA. Like I said, I've come there after doing a year in New York City at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and now I'm gonna be just in my second year of school. And in New York City, I kind of did a lot of cross-dressing, or really began my cross-dressing journey, part of my transition and discovering who I was. However, the difference was in New York, I primarily did that in my room, whereas in Los Angeles, I started to become a little bit more free with being able to come out of my room and be dressed up, maybe not have makeup or anything on or have a wig on or anything, but successfully leaving the house with a skirt and a cute top on and not giving a fuck about what anybody thinks. Mostly it was basically for school days. I didn't really do a lot of like going to major events like that. However, I did go to class like that quite often. And the reason for that was partially because at the beginning of the year in Los Angeles, I had kind of a group of friends, and I was like a group of boys and like men, and like I was trying to fit in, and then we had a falling out because the girl in me opened her mouth, and gossip, because that's what we do, and boys apparently don't like that. So we had a huge falling out, which was really kind of bummer for me because I'd still had this Squeaks persona that came from New York City, so people really knew me, they liked me, I was pretty well liked. Now, however, with this whole falling out with the boys, I kind of fell out of the whole like big in the school scene and kind of went off and started doing my own thing. Now I still did hang out with a few people in school, and there are a few of them are some major influences in my life as well as in my coming out journey. One of them we're going to talk about in a minute. But this broadening out and venturing away from school, the difference between New York City and Los Angeles is when you go to New York City, you kind of know where you can go to experience the LGBT lifestyle and community, and be in a safe area. Like, there are specific areas of the city where you're like, okay, this is legit. Like the Village, I'm good. I know I can be in that area and I shouldn't probably be getting shot at or mugged or anything like that. Whereas if I were in Harlem, probably a different story. But yeah, so in LA, that's a little bit harder. I mean, of course, there's West Hollywood, but every little part of LA is just this big, massive area that has like Orange, Anaheim, North Hollywood, West Hollywood, Hollywood, Los Angeles, like all these different little aspects of the city. So like, there's so many different crowds to get into, to kind of learn and experiment as well with the gender identity, my cross-dressing, my doing a little bit of drag here and there, as well as sexuality and stuff like that. So I was able to get around and find these crowds that were really perfect for me, where I could cross-dress and go to a bar and be treated like a girl. And it was at that time, I wasn't, didn't have any hormones or anything. Everything was inserts, old school tucking with duct tape, like just the worst ways possible of experimenting with my gender identity. But it was very important for me because not only did I get to experiment with being the personality that I felt comfortable as, but I also got to make lots of clothing mistakes. Basically, errors with clothes that probably weren't best for me, and I probably should have never be caught dead in. But most trans girls go through that phase. Even I did in the first year of actually transitioning and being on hormones. We all go through this phase where we want to wear certain things, but we don't consider that they're not really appropriate for body types or whatever. You know, like I don't. That's really kind of being iffy, and I'm kind of being body shaming, I guess, for a little bit of that. But don't look at it like that. Just look at it as like, you know, when you wore something and you were like, oh, I thought this was really nice, and then like later on, and you were like, you looked at yourself again in the mirror, and you're like, what was I thinking? That's kind of what it was for that situation. But the best thing about LA was that I met a really good person. I did stay friends with a few people in school. We're not going to throw out any names in this series, but I will use letters to identify those people. It's usually going to be the letter that starts with their first name. So I met a girl, we'll call her L. And she was dating a boy, and we'll call him M. Now, M comes into play a lot later in another video where we're going to talk about Las Vegas. He becomes a pretty important part in my coming out journey later on then. But we're going to talk mainly about L. So, L was from Canada, and she was the very first person to openly tell me that it was okay for me to cross-dress, and that just because I was a boy didn't mean that I was forced to wear the same social construct of wearing the clothes that boys are forced to wear. That if I wanted to wear a skirt one day to school, it was totally okay. And so to me, this was a huge validating thing for me to hear, considering I just lost all of my friends, like with the boys, and I'm trying to just find my own new life. And so I'm living I'm going to school, I'm trying to discover myself in Los Angeles, and I finally have someone who's explained to me that my feelings of wanting to wear girls' clothes and dress up as a girl, or just dress into a skirt, or dress to come to school one day, was not bad. Those were okay. It wasn't a bad thing for me to be thinking like that. And if I wanted to act on that, I had an ally who was there to stand beside me and say, you know, fuck off to whoever was ready to, you know, give me a hard time for doing whatever I felt was right for me. So L was really important in building that confidence for me and understanding that what I feel is okay. I may not fully understand it, but it's not bad. Like, I've been told for so long that these types of feelings were bad because I was raised, you know, in a Christian household by a military father. These thoughts were always told that were bad for me. So I really found comfort in what she told me when she said things like that. And she had a very manly, tough boyfriend in M. So, and he was very accepting, never gave me a hard time, considering I came from a wrestling background, and he was very much that type of person. And for me to be opening up to him as well as to L, and for him to be like, "That's totally cool. Like, you can do that. Like, I still like you. You're still my friend. You're still cool to me." That was really, really gratifying for me at that age, because it was really the first time that I felt accepted for kind of being different or feeling different than anybody else, because it wasn't gay or straight or lesbian or bisexual or anything like that for me. For me, sexuality was a game. It was fun to free and play. But my gender identity, I couldn't figure it out. I just was lost. And Elle was a really big helpful in that. And another thing she helped me with is she started to take me shopping to clothes and help me buy clothes that were made for my body or fit my build, you know, so that when I did dress, I didn't necessarily look like a man in a dress. I looked like, you know, just someone wearing a dress. Oh, darn, that person is a boy, okay, but they look really good in that dress. They rock it, you know. That's pretty much what LA turned out to be for me. And then I graduated from AMDA, and L left back to Canada, M back to Texas. I kind of was all alone. You know, I had some friends. I had a friend of mine who's really big in films, and he's done lots of stuff nowadays, and he's really big. We'll call him N. But, you know, I've really struggled. I worked as an extra in some films. I auditioned. I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was paying high money and rent and stuff. LA is really hard to make it once I moved out of employee or student housing. So I ended up, you know, going broke basically in LA and having to move back to Missouri Missouri back home, which was kind of devastating because when I did that, I purged all of my clothing, everything that I had bought while I lived in LA, every dress, every skirt, every shoes, everything. I purged it, just gave it away to friends and to girls, or just dropped it off at a donation center, because I couldn't take that life back home with me to Missouri. And that's what we're going to talk about in my next video, going back to Missouri, going back into the closet, and also in my next video we're going to discuss the birth of my son, which is that relationship had a, was a, it was defining for my sexuality, definitely, but it was stepping stones for my gender, because, well, I'll tell you. Please subscribe to see more of those. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to see you subscribe and watch the other two videos that are prior to this one, which are high school in New York City. This one's going to be LA. As you know, I've already talked about LA for like almost 12 minutes. But anyways, thanks guys for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Love you guys all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.